Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to Utility Sports. Hope you guys are doing well and enjoying the mock draft videos. And today in this one, we're going to be bringing you something a little bit different here. Instead of one of us making the picks for each team, what we think will happen, we are actually going to go throughout this video alternating picks and also mocking what we would do if we were the GM of that team. For example, if Austin, you were the GM of your Jacksonville Jaguars at pick 1, which direction would you take them?
For number one pick, I think it's pretty clear and obvious, and it's been clear and obvious ever since they got the number one pick. Trevor Lawrence is going to be the selection from Clemson. I think he is the best player in the draft, period. I think he's the best quarterback. I think for Jacksonville moving forward, he is the best building block possible in this entire class.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. If I was picking number 1 as well, Trevor Lawrence would be the QB coming off the board. But before we advance to pick number 2 here, guys, I just want to remind you to hit that like button, subscribe if you are new. It would mean so much to us. We just recently hit 1,700 subscribers and we're on the road to 2K. So it'd be awesome if you guys could smash that subscribe button. At pick 2, we have my New York Jets. Obviously, our teams are picking 1-2 this year. Quarterback, a very big need. We've mocked that to them what we think will happen. However, if I was Joe Douglas, if I was in his shoes, that is not what I would do. I would go with Penei Sewell, the tackle out of Oregon. He is the best offensive lineman in this class. We already have a franchise tackle in Mekhi Becton. Why not add another one in Penei Sewell? You could have the best tackle combo in the league, in my opinion, moving forward. I think it's all going to be about moving forward with protection for our quarterback, whether that's Sam Darnold, possibly Deshaun Watson. There's a lot yet to be seen what will happen with that QB position, but I think Penei Sewell is the safest and smartest pick at selection 2. Austin at pick 3, now we have the Miami Dolphins, and they're in an interesting situation. They could use a playmaker, obviously some defense. If you were running the show there in Miami, which direction would you take that franchise?
I think for me personally, I like Micah Parsons the most at 3 for Miami. I think this is kind of a change up from what people would maybe expect, but I just think his versatility as a linebacker bodes really well for that Miami Dolphin defense and Brian Flores. He's a versatile linebacker. He can do a lot of things. He used to be a defensive end, provides some pass rush ability. I think he is really well suited in the middle of that Brian Flores defense. I think Miami as a whole would be looking on the defensive side of the ball, considering they had addressed offense a ton in the last draft, considering they took Tua. And I think Miami would do a really, really nice service to themselves by selecting Micah Parsons with that selection.
Right. Miami's going to be a team that's looking at in a variety of different ways. They have a lot of assets as well. They'll also be in on that Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. They might even be hoping for Penei Sewell if he falls past the Jets. That'll be an interesting team to watch. I definitely think Parsons is a very good selection there in Miami. Now at pick 4, I'm the Atlanta Falcons here. New head coach Arthur Smith. Offensively, there's some question marks long-term. Is Julio Jones going to be around? Is Matt Ryan going to be around? And I'm going to solve that problem here. I'm actually going to go grab Justin Fields out of Ohio State. He's a little bit different of a product from what Matt Ryan is. Obviously a little bit more mobile, strong arm QB, gets out, can make plays happen with his legs as well. And I think that Fields is going to be the long-term successor of Matt Ryan there. Also, I thought about Kwity Paye possibly at this spot. They badly need an edge. Gregor Rousseau if they were a bit lower as well. But at this point at 4, I need to get my franchise QB. I think Justin Fields has a shot at being that. They're in Atlanta. He gets to sit and wait for a year. I think that would be really good for his development as well with Matt Ryan still being there. I think that's the best case scenario for Fields and the Falcons here at pick 4. At pick 5, Austin, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that you quite enjoy watching and keep up to date with quite a bit. Obviously, Joe Burrow, one of your favorite college quarterbacks of all time. What do you think that the Bengals need to do here to put the best product on the field on Sundays?
I think obviously you would look at that offensive tackle position and say that is arguably their biggest need. A.J. Green will be gone in the offseason, and to me, Jamar Chase will be the selection, just considering how great of chemistry he had with Joe Burrow at LSU. And I think it's really hard to obviously pass on the Heisman winner, Devontae Smith. He was great this season. There's a lot of credit to him, but ultimately I still think Jamar Chase narrowly edges him out in this pick, just considering the history that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase have had together in that one awesome season, that national championship season. I think Joe Burrow would really, really vouch to select his former teammate at LSU.
Yeah, this is the pathway I would have taken too if I was running the Cincinnati Bengals. I'd be doing everything I can to make Joe Burrow happy and get the best out of Joe Burrow, the guy I spent the first overall pick on last year. You either do that by grabbing him a tackle like Penei Sewell or a receiver he's very comfortable with already, Jamar Chase. Their connection last year was incredible. And don't worry, Devontae Smith will not be falling far. I would be grabbing him here at pick 6 if I was running the Philadelphia Eagles. What a phenomenal year. You had alluded to that, Austin, there at Alabama. Obviously won the Heisman as a wide receiver, not something you see very often. Also won Offensive Player of the Year. It was absolutely marvelous in the college football playoff games and throughout the whole season as a whole. Smith, an incredible wideout, gives them a deep threat, someone who's able to take the top off the defense. Also, pretty good size. Needs to get that frame filled out, but obviously can high point the football. It gives you a lot of different things that the Philadelphia Eagles badly need for whoever's throwing the football there next season. And that leads us at number 7 to a team that has a big question mark about who will be throwing the football for them next season. Obviously, Matthew Stafford and the Detroit Lions sound like they are mutually agreeing to part ways, looking for a trade partner for him at the moment. If you're running the Detroit Lions, are you looking to get that QB successor for Matthew Stafford, or are you looking somewhere else?
Right now, I think you obviously have to look at the quarterback position. In a lot of scenarios, I thought it was not really worth taking a quarterback, having Matt Stafford with the current roster construction of the Detroit Lions. But now they're kind of forcing their own hand here. They voluntarily, came out and said that they are looking to move on from Stafford, and Stafford agreed. So at this point, I think you have to take a quarterback in Zach Wilson. Obviously, a very, very productive season at BYU. He's going to be an accurate and mobile quarterback, but looking at it as a whole, I think Detroit has to select a quarterback at this point, unless they're able to really leverage the trade market for another quarterback, which that's not very likely that you'll see one get traded and one be traded for in the same offseason. That does not happen often. But looking at the Detroit Lions, I think they have to address that quarterback position immediately, and Zach Wilson would be the guy in this situation.
Yeah, definitely. Zach Wilson comes in as that QB. What a great year at BYU. Really played himself into a likely top 10 pick. And I agree with you now. Detroit is a huge landing spot for that QB position, and Zach Wilson going there at 7 makes all the sense in the world to me as well. At pick 8 for the Carolina Panthers, there's a few different places I could be looking. If Zach Wilson had fallen to 8, I would have been very quick to select him. However, now Trey Lance, a little bit less proven, obviously, only had the one real year starting at NDSU, was great last year, only played one game this year, though, in that showcase game. Didn't look great in that. I would be a little hesitant to grab him here at 8. So instead, I'm going to grab Kyle Pitts, the tight end out of Florida. This is the highest we've seen him go in one of our mocks. And remember, this is what we're doing. To me, Kyle Pitts is a top 10 player in this class. I think his matchup nightmare ability at tight end, he could be easily the best pass catcher from this draft, especially when you compare tight end success throughout the league. Travis Kelce and George Kittle, are so far ahead of the other tight ends in the league, honestly, that grabbing a guy who's that much of a playmaker can be a real threat. And it really changes outcomes on Sunday. I think Kyle Pitts there in Joe Brady's offense with Matt Rule as the head coach could be scary, scary, scary for other teams in the NFL. At pick 9, we have the Denver Broncos now. Quite a few questions on that defense. Obviously, Vic Fangio there hasn't gotten everything done that they had hoped when they had hired him. Where do you see the Broncos going if you were running them?
I think that they should look on the defensive side of the ball, especially the cornerback position. Considering AJ Boye will not be back, Patrick Surtain will be the selection. He's arguably the best man-to-man corner in this entire class. Caleb Farley is also a very, very nice prospect at this spot, but to me, I trust Patrick Surtain more. I trust that Denver will be running quite a bit of man under Fangio at this point, and I think that he is the best cover corner in the entire class, and I think they would be quick to select him at pick 9.
Yeah, I definitely like that. I think Surtain is the top corner as well. However, here at 10, I am the Dallas Cowboys, and I have to still make a decision on what I'm doing, and that's going to be Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech. He's still learning the position a little bit there at cornerback, but I think he's going to be able to figure it out. He's looked really good on tape to me. I think he's got a lot of man-to-man cover skills that I would be looking for if I'm the Dallas Cowboys. Trayvon Diggs, obviously grabbed him in the second round last year. Need to come back, get someone to play across from him. Hopefully Diggs takes a step forward, and him and Farley can be the cornerback duo of the future there for Dallas. Now, Austin, if you were running the New York Giants, an in-division rival, there's one player on the board that sticks out to me. I'm sure you feel that way as well. Which direction would you go?
For me personally, I would go Jalen Waddle. I think you have to add a dynamic receiver to that group. Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, they just aren't that dynamic. But getting a guy like Jalen Waddle can be transcendent for an offense, especially for Daniel Jones. And, if you do trust him to be your starting quarterback, you have to do everything in your power to really help continue along the process. You have to make sure that you put the proper weapons in place for him. I think Jalen Waddle really does that for you. One of the most explosive receivers in the draft, if not the most explosive. So looking at Jalen Waddle, I think that's a great selection here for the Giants at 11.
Yeah, Waddle, the explosiveness you had mentioned, the need for the wideout is obvious there in New York. They need to start moving the football a little bit more. Having Saquon Barkley back next year will help them. Jalen Waddle will further aid Daniel Jones' progression and their offensive success that they find in 2021. Now, the San Francisco 49ers at pick 12. And to me, I'm at a little bit of a crossroads here. I see Rashawn Slater. I could really use that. There's a little bit of versatility with him in case Trent Williams doesn't come back. Could play him at tackle, could play him on the inside. But also Trey Lance is here. And to me, I am going to roll the dice on Trey Lance at pick 12. I think that financially it makes a lot of sense. I'm going to be able to use the money I saved from Jimmy Garoppolo to build out the rest of my roster, keep that defense intact. I think that's going to be really important moving forward when I have guys like Nick Bosa, Armstead, and all of them needing extensions. That's going to be really important to me, having that money freed up, getting 5 years on a rookie deal QB, someone who I think is going to be fairly productive in the NFL and would really succeed in Shanahan's offense. That's Trey Lance. That's the direction I would take the 49ers. At pick 13 now, Austin, we have the LA Chargers. Obviously, you've got Justin Herbert there in place. How do you kind of go about this pick with what's left on the board?
So for me personally, after doing a little bit of tape research, Rashawn Slater is the guy I will select here. I've been big on the whole idea of, taking an edge to replace Melvin Ingram, but after Rashawn Slater film, it's really impressive. You watch him against Ohio State. He's able to really deal with the length of Chase Young and the explosiveness of Chase Young so effectively. Does a really, really good job staggering the long arm by getting his hand actually in the chest, the right side of Chase Young. And he was dominant that game and really made Chase Young a non-factor. I think he's one of the most underrated prospects so far. I think the Chargers would be super happy to get him here at pick 13. I think that's the direction they should go.
Yeah, Slater comes in. You're helping out that franchise QB, Justin Herbert, get him some protection, also improve that run game. Obviously, now Brandon Staley coming in as their head coach. I think that this is a smart move for them. It builds out that offensive line, something they badly need to address. At pick 14, the Minnesota Vikings are here. And there's quite a few different needs for them as well in the trenches. They need to improve that offensive line, and also that defensive line could use a little bit of help. Not really sure what the situation with Michael Pierce looks like going into next year. They could also use an edge. Kwity Paye does jump out to me as an option here, but I'm actually going to go Christian Darrisaw, the offensive tackle out of Virginia Tech. I was hoping Rashawn Slater would fall to me here. However, Darrisaw at 14, I feel very comfortable with. That is under the assumption that I would leave Ezra Cleveland inside at guard. Darrisaw will be my franchise tackle there at that point. Slater would have given me a little bit more versatility, I had felt. However, I like him here at 14. It's about protecting Kirk Cousins. It's about helping Dalvin Cook in the run game if I'm the GM of the Minnesota Vikings. And doing so would be grabbing Christian Darrisaw. Now, Austin, the New England Patriots are at pick 15. Kyle Pitts is off the board. Remember, I'd mocked him to Carolina Panthers. That kind of plays into what you're looking to do here with pick 15. I feel like this is one of the toughest spots to be here in the draft.
Yeah, kind of looking at what's available versus what New England really needs at the moment. I don't really see there being a clear fit at this point in terms of, wow, there's got to be one guy here in particular. But for me personally, I think they should select Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah at this point. He's arguably one of the best players left on the board. New England should be drafting for value at this point, just considering at where they're sitting at. That Kyle Pitts would be a great pick, but obviously he was selected way earlier in this mock draft in particular. But Owusu-Koramoah could really fit into that middle of that defense. I mean, Hightower is getting up there in age at this point, and I'm not exactly sure what his future looks like in New England, but I think New England would be very, very quick to jump on him. And this is what I would do personally. I for sure think that this guy's a true leader on a defense, and that's a little bit of what New England needs at this point.
Right, definitely. That's one of those things, too. I was hoping to actually grab Owusu-Koramoah myself at some point for one of these teams. I feel like he's going to be a really, really high-quality linebacker in the NFL. At pick 16 for the Arizona Cardinals now, I'm looking around. I'm looking at the cornerback position, J.C. Horn possibly. However, Kwity Paye has fallen here to me at pick 16. I think this is very possible actually on draft night as well. Remember, it just takes a few teams to have a few different needs or wants in the draft for a guy to fall like this. Kwity Paye comes here to Arizona at pick 16. For me, it's about replacing Chandler Jones long-term. He's coming off of injury. He's getting up there in age. Hassan Reddick, his season was predicated off of a lot of success in one game where he had 5 sacks. And Marcus Golden, I just don't think he's coming back. I don't think he should factor into long-term plans. Kwity Paye comes in, gives me some versatility on that edge, and he's growing as a player. He's much improved in recent tape, and I just think he's going to be a really solid defensive end in the NFL. At pick 17, we have the Las Vegas Raiders, Austin, and they're a team that really badly needs to address that edge position as well. Which way would you take the Las Vegas Raiders if you were Mike Mayock?
So I think for the Raiders, it's going to be about addressing that defensive line. And I think that's where they should be looking for sure at this point. They also could look on the interior of their offensive line. I've been kind of going back and forth what I think they should do at this point. But I think that they should take the chance on Gregory Rousseau, considering that he has fallen so far at this point. I think right now he's extremely raw. And at this point in his career, it's going to be all about developing him as a pass rusher because he does not have a lot of moves. Just watching him, I think he has actually not a super great get off, but he has the size and the raw strength in order to develop into a franchise defensive end. But there's a lot to work on with him. I really wish he would have played this season, but I think you have to go with one of those high upside guys if you are the Raiders. And ultimately, I think they're getting a pretty good one here at 17 if they can develop him a little further.
Right, that's one of those tough things to monitor too with Rousseau this year. With him opting out, we haven't really seen him for the last few months. We don't know necessarily what he's added on to his game, if he's progressed a little bit. There is a little bit of a risk there with that raw talent, but I really do like that selection. I think he's going to be a quality edge as well in the NFL. At pick 18 now, we have the Miami Dolphins and Austin. Earlier, you had taken Micah Parsons, so I'm going to try and build off that pick, and I'm going to go with Najee Harris here out of Alabama. He proved to me that he is the best running back in this draft. I think he's the most dynamic, most versatile, can run with power, can run with elusiveness, and I think that they're in Miami. They need to improve over Myles Gaskin. They need to improve over what they have in that running back room. Having grabbed a linebacker, I think it's important for them to come back on the other side of the football. And yes, they're going to have to be aggressive trying to find a wide receiver, whether that's through free agency or at pick 35 here in the draft. But for me, Najee Harris, I think the talent is there, the need is there. That is the direction I would take the Miami Dolphins. At pick 19, we have the Washington football team. Obviously, another big need for them at that QB spot. However, I'm not sure how you feel. I don't know if I would go with a QB quite yet at this point. I'm interested to hear which direction you would take Ron Rivera and Washington.
I think there are two players that really stick out on the board right now for me personally. It's Samuel Cosmi and it's Rashad Bateman. I'm really close between the two of them at this selection, but I think ultimately they do need to address that tackle position worse. And at this point, Samuel Cosmi will be the selection. Ultimately, this offensive line could be having a little bit of turnover. We're not sure what's going to happen with Scherf and if he will re-sign, but they have to take care of that tackle spot. And Cosmi would be a really good pick here at 19 for them.
Yeah, that's definitely a really big thing to monitor there if you are Washington, is that Brandon Scherf deal you had mentioned. Also, you have to build in that offensive tackle. They lost Trent Williams, obviously, in the trade with San Francisco. They need to build up that offensive front. I think that going with Cosmi is a great selection. At pick 20, if I was running the Chicago Bears, I'm looking to improve my offensive front as well. I need to improve my O-line and start winning at the line of scrimmage a little more often. QB is a pressing need. I'll be looking around if I was the Bears GM at different places to try and find a veteran QB, possibly a guy like Darnold, if the Jets do make a move for Watson. So for me here at this point, I would actually go with Elijah Vera-Tucker. He's been playing a little bit all over the place there for USC, was in at guard, went out to tackle for a little while. I think that there's a lot of value in that. I think the Bears need to grab a tackle, but I think maybe Vera-Tucker could fit as that. He's a versatile guy. I really value that when you're grabbing a first-round lineman, because if you have a guy who's worked at multiple spots, you know that they're going to be able to find success at one of those in the NFL, and you really avoid, I feel like, the high likelihood of a bust possibly on that offensive line, and that's why I have a preference towards Vera-Tucker here at pick 20. Now at pick 21, Austin, we have the Indianapolis Colts there in the Jaguars AFC South. QB, a huge question mark. Phillip Rivers, obviously, calling it quits now. Which direction would you take Indianapolis?
So for me in Indianapolis, I think that offensive tackle is going to be the biggest need. But I'm actually going to go with Rashad Bateman with this selection. I think for whoever the next quarterback is, I think they should really look at addressing the wide receiver position, considering that T.Y. Hilton might not be back next season. We got to be honest with ourselves. I think that this is a deeper tackle class, so you can afford to, possibly push that back. I think wide receivers kind of a deep class here too, but for me, between those two positions, Rashad Bateman is the best player available at this point. You have to be ready for whoever the next quarterback is, because if T.Y. is gone, what are you kind of looking at there with Paris Campbell still being around and Pascal? But at this point, I think you have to be prepared if T.Y. Hilton is gone at the end of the season.
Right, and definitely Chris Olave's decision to go back to Ohio State does impact the depth there at wide receiver a little bit as well, puts a little bit more of a premium on that wide receiver position. And just watching the Colts this year was evident that they needed to get someone there who would create more separation off the line of scrimmage. Rashad Bateman's going to be able to come in and do that. At pick 22, another AFC South team here in the Tennessee Titans. And for me, I'm really, really concerned about that edge position. I'm going to go Joseph Osai out of Texas. I need to get someone who's going to get after the QB, generate pressure. That's really the biggest thing for Tennessee right now. That's their shortcoming on that defense. Obviously, Mike Vrabel's had them very well coached. They've been very successful over the past few years, but they need to start getting after the QB more. They need to hurry them and force the ball out a little bit quicker. I think Osai comes in and helps me do that if I'm running Tennessee. Now, Austin, you're running the New York Jets here. Remember, earlier I had mocked Penei Sewell to them. Where would you take the Jets having Penei Sewell already acquired here with how the board's kind of fallen, and which way would you take them next?
For me personally, I'm going to take J.C. Horn. You have to address that quarterback position if you are the New York Jets, and J.C. Horn's another man-to-man guy, and clearly the Jets have had some issues covering this season. Guys like Bless Austin have not lived up to where they need to be as a corner in the NFL, but getting a guy like J.C. Horn at this spot is absolutely necessary. Another guy you could look at potentially is Eric Stokes. It's all on preference, but I think right now Horn is a better corner than Eric Stokes at this point in the draft process. We will have to see as we move forward. But for me in the New York Jets, you have to keep improving both sides of the ball. And quite honestly, I think J.C. Horn would be the pick, and I think they should take him.
Yeah, Horn at this point is a really good grab out of South Carolina. I think I've been saying all offseason, actually, and for most of the season and most of the last few off seasons, that we need to address that cornerback position. As a Jets fan, I'm very glad to see you go out and grab J.C. Horn here at 23. At pick 24, now if I was running the Pittsburgh Steelers, I feel like this is another one of those pivot points in the draft. There's a few different directions that the Steelers could look to go. Offensive tackle to keep some of their salary cap flexibility. Also running back to keep their salary cap flexibility. For me, I'm going to opt to go with Alex Leatherwood out of Alabama. I'm going to grab that tackle. Gives me the long-term sustainability there that I'm going to need. Gives me leverage in contract talks as well. And ultimately at this point, I just think that that's a more pressing need. There's a few running backs I would feel comfortable grabbing a little bit later on if I do decide to opt away from James Conner. That'll be kind of what to watch for this offseason when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it all depends, too, on what happens with Ben Roethlisberger. It's very possible that a few months down the road here, we're seriously looking at a QB here for Pittsburgh, even though they just brought in Dwayne Haskins. Now, Austin, your Jaguars are here again at 25. You had mocked Trevor Lawrence to them as the guy you would take. Now, with how the board's kind of fallen out, tackle's a big need, tight end's a big need, safety as well. Is there a specific way you would lean for Jacksonville?
For me personally, I think that you have to look at that tackle spot and seriously consider it. I also really like Eric Stokes as well at this spot potentially to put on the other side of C.J. Henderson. But Jalen Mayfield is going to be the pick for me out of Michigan. I think that you have to solidify that tackle spot. I don't think Cam Robinson's a long-term option. He just has not worked. He's a guy that at one point in his career was supposed to be the fourth pick in the draft. He fell all the way to the second round, and there's probably reasons behind that, if we're being honest. And for Jacksonville, getting Jalen Mayfield, that's going to be really big because now you have your two tackles going forward. You have Juwan Taylor and you have Jalen Mayfield on the other side.
Right, definitely. You see Mayfield come in here. It's going to be about protecting Trevor Lawrence, helping him develop as an NFL QB. I think Mayfield is the right pick to do that. Austin, also looking at that offensive line, it's very possible that Andrew Norwell gets cut. Do you see that as a likely possibility for Jacksonville this offseason?
I think it's very possible considering his number. I mean, he's one of the top, 5 paid guards in the entire league at his position. And it's just not something that you can really do going forward considering he's in average to slightly above average guard currently. So I think that they could be looking there, and then maybe that'll affect what they do in the second round.
Right, definitely. You're looking at a real focus probably on that offensive line, though, as the offseason progresses. I think Mayfield is a great selection there at 25. At pick 26, now we have the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, a very successful season this year. And honestly, moving forward, I think that they're going to be very focused on that edge position. Olivier Vernon obviously sustained an injury. We weren't really expecting him to be back anyway. I'm going to go with Azeez Ojulari out of Georgia. He comes in to Cleveland here across from Myles Garrett. Again, it's going to be about getting after the QB. They have some of their young corners in place there with Ward, Greedy Williams, who we haven't seen as much, obviously, because of injuries. I just think for the Browns, it's going to be about getting after the QB a little more consistently, opening up Myles Garrett, hoping he sees a little bit fewer double teams moving forward, and Ojulari is going to be the help to do that. At pick 27 here now, Austin, you have the Baltimore Ravens. We see this tight end position continue to pop up here on the team needs. This is something they are known for doing here. Now, I'm sure this is not necessarily the direction you would take them, though. Which way would you carry them?
Yeah, Pat Freiermuth would be in consideration if this were what would the team do. But at this point, obviously, this is what I would do personally. Can we just pan to the edge just quick? I just want to see how that's kind of stacking up. There's nobody really worth taking, in my opinion, at this spot. I'm going to actually have Terrace Marshall Jr. be that guy. I think he could be a really, really good red zone threat for the Baltimore Ravens. And just drafting another receiver to help Lamar Jackson develop as a thrower, I think Terrace Marshall could be one of the better players in the draft and one of the more undervalued players currently in this draft. Kadarius Toney's another really nice pick possibly at this spot. But for me personally, I think Terrace Marshall Jr. might fit a little better into that Ravens offense.
Yeah, definitely. You've seen Lamar Jackson have a reliance on Willie Snead, Hollywood Brown there. It just hasn't quite worked out for him as a passer. I think Terrace Marshall makes a lot of sense. And you had mentioned that edge position. That's something to watch too with Matthew Judon wanting about $20 million a year. You and I had talked about this off camera, and it's just a little bit of a high number for a player of Judon's caliber. Obviously, he's a good player, just not worth that franchise edge type of money. At pick 28 now, we have the New Orleans Saints, and boy, are there some questions there in New Orleans. It sounds like Drew Brees might be done. Is Taysom Hill going to be the guy? Is Jameis Winston going to be the guy? And I actually feel like neither of them are the guy. I'm going to go with Mac Jones out of Alabama. If I was the New Orleans Saints, I would have a hard time passing on him here at 28, just kind of with how the board's fallen. With him falling to me, I don't have to move up to grab my QB. I get that fifth-year option. Maybe Taysom or Jameis is my guy next season. Let Mac Jones sit, learn Sean Payton's offense. And I think that you need to be looking for that franchise QB moving forward. They've been so blessed to have Drew Brees for as long as they have. Now it's going to be about turning the page to the future, and Mac Jones is that guy, in my opinion. At pick 29, we have the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, a crushing loss today to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Fought really hard in that game and had a really great season. There's a lot to build on there. Austin, if you're running the Green Bay Packers, how are you looking to take them to the next step next season?
I'm taking one of the best playmakers in the entire draft, Kadarius Toney. I think he's been undervalued in a lot of people's rankings and predictive boards, big boards. But finally, he's starting to get some respect in that first round. I think that's more or less where he should be in terms of actual talent standpoint. I think Green Bay would be really scary if Aaron Rodgers comes back next year with a guy like Kadarius Toney as a true weapon for him. Obviously, he has Devontae Adams, but imagine this offense with a guy like Kadarius Toney, who is an ultimate playmaker. I really think that's scary if they end up getting him at pick 29.
Yeah, Toney comes in, gives you that number 2 wide receiver, a legitimate one. Remember, they had been in talks with Will Fuller and the Houston Texans at the deadline. Did not get anything done there. Toney comes in, the athlete that they need, and definitely a big improvement at the number 2 wide receiver position. Now for the Buffalo Bills at pick 30. Here I'm looking at my defense. Obviously, a tough loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. They're just a couple pieces away, and I think a big one there will be Zaven Collins, the linebacker. I think it's important to upgrade over Matt Milano. He played very well this year. Don't get me wrong, Bills fans. But I think that you can make an improvement here with Zaven Collins, who's a big part of that Tulsa defense. I think putting him next to Tremaine Edmonds gives you a little bit more, oomph in the middle of that defense. You need that when you're going up against Travis Kelce and the Kansas City Chiefs. We saw today how good Travis Kelce is and how much of a mismatch he is really for Buffalo. They did their best. Leslie Frazier really fought hard in that game for the Buffalo Bills, calling plays as the D coordinator. But I think Zaven Collins would come in and improve that defense even further. Now, as we progress into what the Super Bowl matchup is going to be of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs, Austin, if you're running Tampa Bay at this point, you've got Tom Brady under contract for one more year. Do you feel confident he's coming back? And what move would you make if he does come back?
I think ultimately it's hard to, with the whole Tom Brady, will he be back? I think he's very hungry. I think it's very possible that he does come back. So under that assumption that he does come back, they are going to want to fill out the rest of their team. The big need is the interior defensive line. I don't think Ndamukong Suh will be sustainable in terms of bringing him back for the dollar amount he wants. He is a very good player, but I don't think they'll be able to bring him back. So under that assumption, I'm actually going to go with the guy who's had a lot of momentum going into the draft. I think that's Christian Barmore. I think Jay Tufele did himself kind of a disservice by not playing this season. He very well could have been the top interior defensive lineman in the entire draft just because of how versatile he is along that defensive line. But at this point, Christian Barmore really showed out this entire season, and especially come the playoff games, he was absolutely dominant. He would be the selection here for Tampa, and that's what.
Yeah, sorry, that's definitely what I was just about to mention too with Barmore, is he really shined in the college football playoff games. Really stuck out, honestly, watching those two. So many times he would block shed even one or two guys to get to the runner. I think him coming into Tampa Bay to replace Ndamukong Suh makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Vita Vea did come back today as well, and I think that they're going to be focused on improving that defensive line. Now at pick 32, the Kansas City Chiefs, the team I think that we both feel could very possibly be the defending champions yet again. Here now at pick 32, to me, I'm going to really prioritize looking at the wide receiver position. We have had a lot of them go, though, and we've seen how this has thinned out. So at this point, I don't really feel comfortable grabbing one. I was hoping Kadarius Toney would fall here to 32. So instead, I'm going to be looking at that interior offensive line, and I'm actually going to be grabbing Wyatt Davis. I know it's a little bit early with his injury. Maybe this is a little bit of a reach, but I need to improve my guard play. I want to help Clyde Edwards-Helaire moving forward. I get a real run blocker, someone who can move guys in the second and third level with Wyatt Davis. He comes into Kansas City, helps protect Patrick Mahomes, helps improve that run game, and I find it very likely that Kansas City could continue their role on dominance moving forward with that type of pick. So this will conclude our mock draft here, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy it. Remember, this is what we would do if we were the GM, not necessarily what we think will happen. So some of these picks might not be what you think will happen on draft night. It was not intended to be that way. I hope you guys really did enjoy the video. Thanks again so much for all your support. We have the best viewers out there, and we really appreciate you guys. We will catch you in the next video.